Gomez was easily winning a fight.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say that on camera, but there we go.
It's going to be used as the outtake at the beginning. Hello, this is The Agenda from Blood Red. I am Dan Austin, this is Christian Walsh. We are from Liverpool.com and we're here today to talk about, Christian, a very unexpected story that broke last night. The scrap between Raheem Sterling and Joe Gomez on international duty. He's clearly not taken another defeat at Anfield very well, has he, Raheem?
No, he's taken one for the team in terms of the news cycle, because, you know, you Liverpool have beaten Man City 3-1 and you're thinking, okay, everyone's really happy about Guardiola losing his head a little bit, but, you know, it's England now. England duty, nothing really is gonna get written about, nothing really to talk about. We'll just forget about football for the next 2 weeks. And then he just basically starts a fight with Joe Gomez in the England canteen. It's funny because people are saying, you know, oh, it's getting blown out of proportion. This is one of England's best players, has essentially been internally disciplined and suspended because...
For trying to batter another England player.
Because ultimately he wound him up a little bit in the game 24 hours previously. I can't remember anything like this. Imagine if this was Spain and Ramos did this to PK. You'd be absolutely salivating. You wouldn't be able to believe this. You'd be going, I want to see footage of this and all sorts. It's really interesting. It's an interesting reaction from Sterling. It's interesting, obviously, from our perspective, because Joe Gomez is one of those involved. It sounds by, you know, all the accounts that you read and what you hear that, you know, Joe Gomez has acted very admirably and sort of hasn't gone near him, despite... I've got this thought in my mind of Sterling being a little bit like Scrappy too, you know, let me at him. But yeah, it's one of those, because Sterling's cultivated this and you know, with good reason, this persona, and he's a very thoughtful young man. He stands up for things that are important in society, and this shouldn't, you know, tar that. But you know, it's just sort of, this completely goes against that a little bit. It's sort of, everyone thought he'd grown up and he was mature, and it's clearly just got to him a little bit that Liverpool beat them 3-1 and Joe Gomez got in his face, and it's a remarkable incident, basically. It's
the kind of thing that in theory can happen to anyone, isn't it? Is that you get annoyed with someone that you work with and you maybe take it out a little bit in the office, but the extent to which this has happened and the public eye that it's in just makes it a massive story, doesn't it? And it really goes to show how, in general, how much Liverpool are in Manchester City's heads, because you talked about the Guardiola thing before. I wrote 800 words on the freeze frame of it last night, the gif from going mad at Mike Dean on the touchline. That coupled with the Sterling thing just shows you how these are. So that's Manchester City's manager, probably the best manager in the world, the one that's most used to success, most used to challenging for things, and Manchester City's best player, in my opinion, as well. Certainly considering the fact that Kevin De Bruyne basically missed the season last season. He's been City's number one man in terms of goal scoring and everything for a while. And they just can't hack it. They can't hack what Liverpool are doing to them. They can't hack actually coming to Anfield and playing footy. They just can't mentally do it. It's really odd, because like even Everton can't play at Anfield, but even Everton by and large restrain themselves and by and large manage to get through it in a psychological sense. City the other day, it felt like a culmination. This whole thing, it felt like they really need to take stock and look after themselves in a sense and stop thinking about Liverpool so much. But every week that Liverpool continue to win, it's just going to happen more and more and more.
I mean, with the greatest respect, you say the Everton thing, with the greatest respect to Everton, there's a disparity there between the two squads. You know, Liverpool generally beat Everton at Anfield because they have the best of squads, and that is a fact, you know, certainly in recent years. With Man City, it's not that. You know, you could argue Man City have the best as well. You could argue, I think Man City have got the best of squads, not necessarily the best team.
Squad in the world, and the most expensively assembled squad of all time as well. It's very important to point out.
So I think this is twofold. This, you know, what you talk about in terms of City's reaction with Liverpool and not being able to handle it. Number one is the fact that over the past 2 seasons, Manchester City have got 198 points, 198 last season. They've won 2 Premier Leagues, and I think probably in the back of their minds they thought that this season they've strengthened again. They bought Rodri. They probably thought that Liverpool haven't strengthened, and ultimately they would not be able to replicate what they've done. And lo and behold, 12 games in, it's actually Man City who've fallen by the wayside slightly. And it's Liverpool who are the team who are looking like they could go on and win 100 points. You know, it's very early doors to say that, but I think that's playing on their minds. I think they probably felt like that was probably the hardest challenge they could have ever possibly imagined last season. And all of a sudden, they're not even thrust in the title race. They're currently trying to cling on to one, which is just a remarkable place to be in. I think secondly is that Pep Guardiola, and I don't say this in a bad way about him, but he's the biggest control freak in football. He absolutely is meticulous in everything that he does. The way you can see the way his team plays, the way they always score that goal where they cut it back to the byline and slot it in from 6 yards. Everyone has an instruction to the letter with Pep Guardiola. Jurgen Klopp completely and utterly muddles that. He can't play against the chaos of Jurgen Klopp. It is control versus chaos. The thing about Liverpool now is that it's control chaos, and that's where Liverpool have evolved. Man City haven't really been able to bring that chaos into their control, and therefore when Guardiola comes up against Liverpool and when their players, they're so used to playing against teams who will give them the opportunity to carry out their plan and carry out their instructions to a T. When they come up against a side that disrupts that, and Liverpool do it more than any other team that we've seen in world football, they can't handle it. To a lesser degree, it happened against Tottenham in the Champions League last season as well in the quarter-final. And this is why they're struggling with VAR, because it's something completely out of their control. So basically, they go to Anfield every season now, and they can't control the way Guardiola wants them to control. And it doesn't just eat away at him for those 90 minutes, but it's clearly starting to eat away at him and the club over the course of a season, because they know that this is actually going to impact upon their chances of making it 3 league titles on the bounce.
If we talk about disruption as well in terms of Manchester City and Anfield, it's important to note Sterling in particular, because he is one of the best players in world football now. He was brilliant when he played at Liverpool. He's gone up so many levels since he went there. He can finish now. He scores plenty of goals. He lays on loads for the likes of Aguero and Jesus. He's a brilliant all-round player that will go on to be even better than he is right now. But when he turns up at Anfield, it's a totally different story. It's like he can't kick a football. He's played at Anfield now 6 times for Manchester City since he left Liverpool, and has never had a shot on target. For a lad whose game is increasingly about scoring goals, or at least being in the position to force a goalkeeper into making a really, really good save. Part of the reason I think that it ends up being Gomez that he takes his anger out on is that is a teammate. So in a sense, in an international sense, so he's already been sort of well marshalled for 85 minutes by Trent Alexander-Arnold in that position, who's a lad that he knows really quite well because he goes and meets up with him once a month to play footy and whatever else. And now Joe Gomez comes on and does the same thing. The psychology of that is probably a bit different to it just being a stranger, isn't it? Because if it's a stranger, you just sort of push them off and get on with it. But when it's someone that you know and like, and you feel affronted by them, that's got a different effect in your mind, hasn't it? And I think that might actually be a big part of why when he comes and plays against Liverpool, because in a sense he knows us all. He knows the corridors, he knows the club, the fans that are sat in the main stands are the same ones that used to cheer him and then ended up booing him. Is there a sort of familiarity breeds contempt thing with him when he comes to Anfield, where it's a lot of it's in his head, because he's very much got the talent to score a goal against Liverpool, but he's never even once come close.
It's absolutely, you're spot on, and you go through the years of what he's done at Anfield, and it's almost incredible when you look at how a player of his talent can do so little. You have his first ever appearance at Anfield in a Manchester City shirt, and that was the 2015-16 season, and it's John Flanagan who classes him straight away, and the crowd absolutely love it. You've got a situation whereby I think he gets taken off in the 2016-17 season when Wijnaldum scores 1-0. In the 3-0 in the Champions League and the 4-3, he doesn't really have much of an impact at all. There's been occasions where he's hauled off early, and it's almost been a little bit embarrassing for him because this is a player who cost them £50 million, and he should have the fortitude, the mental toughness, and the ability to completely drown out those boos and to play his own game. I don't think I've ever seen a player who has been disrupted so naturally by the reaction of a crowd. You think about when Steven Gerrard would go to Goodison Park and he'd thrive off it. Yeah. It would almost be a cloak of invincibility to him. He'd absolutely love it. Whereas, Raheem Sterling, you go down the years from 2015-16 all the way through to this game, and it's just a litany of disappointments and poor performances. Even last season, he gets taken off at 0-0. Leroy Sané comes on, wins the penalty, which Mahrez doesn't convert. But even, it's almost sort of the Man City's biggest chance of beating Liverpool came when Raheem Sterling wasn't on the pitch last season. So I actually thought he had an okay game on Sunday, but again, we're talking about one of the best players, certainly one of the best players in the Premier League, one of the best players in Europe, having an okay game, and he was up against one of the best right backs in the world in Trent Alexander-Arnold. But it's the agitation, as you say. It's that feeling of, even before he squared off against Gomez, it was that feeling if the referee, Michael Oliver, would blow up and he'd sort of grimace, he'd react more than a player should react in those circumstances.
Someone said to me on the Copper half-time that he thought he was going to get sent off. Just because he looked wound up from the start. It looked like the occasion of it. I hate using that word because it's such a cliche, but you know what I mean. The sort of the fact that this game of football is an event, almost a cultural event in this country beyond just being a football match at this stage because it's so important. It felt like that was in his mind from the start, and almost if he had the arrogance in his own ability. If he was able to just walk on the pitch and go, I'm boss, and I'm going to show you how boss I am, then I think that would work out more for him than him trying to make it this fight. And I see why he's trying to make it a fight, because he probably is aware of his own record at Anfield in terms of obviously City's record on not winning there since 2003, but also I haven't ever had a good shot here and that kind of thing. He'll be aware of that.
So and he took 4 shots. I think
he's tried to change it, and I think he's tried to play the game with a different attitude. I think he's thought, I'm doing something wrong when I come here, so I need to do something different. I know I'll do this. I'll be aggressive, I'll be feisty, whatever else. So I understand why you do that from a footballer's point of view, but it was just the wrong way to do it. It just didn't work out for him at all. You can do the more sort of understated arrogance. You can do the football and aggression without having to try and look like the hard man, essentially, which he is then carried into this England thing. And it feels like people behind the scenes will have said to him, lad, you're just making yourself look a fool here, especially after what you said before, all of the progress that he's made as a human being more than a footballer since he left Liverpool, because at that time his reputation amongst the Liverpool supporters was awful. He needed to leave Liverpool and just go somewhere for the sake of everyone involved. And he's genuinely become one of the most important sort of socio-cultural figures in this country. He's a massively important person, Raheem Sterling.
He transcends the sport.
Yeah, exactly. That's no understatement. Sport is very, very useful in a political sense. As much as people might try and leave politics out of football, you absolutely can't do that because they're intrinsic to each other. And he's been one of the most forthright about that. It's a little bit similar to Megan Rapinoe in the United States about sort of LGBT rights and women's rights and that kind of thing. Sterling is very, very culturally important in this country at this moment in time, and it does feel like in trying to change his on-pitch personality for that 90 minutes, he's just made a mistake and needs to get back to the things that he actually just does best, which is putting the footy in the net rather than trying to apparently claw at someone if we're judging by the scratch above the eye that Joe Gomez has apparently got.
Yeah, I'll phrase this carefully. Liverpool fans are more than entitled to boo him. I think it's great that they put him off his game in the way that they do, but I think it's quite hard. And I say this maybe from a different perspective, but I think it's hard to dislike Raheem Sterling. I know what happened in 2015. I know that he agitated for a move. A lot of that was his agent at the time. I know he didn't leave in the best terms, but I think you look at what he does and the way he's been treated, and ultimately Liverpool fans and Raheem Sterling are kind of fighting the same fight.
Exactly. This is like when it's
against the same opponents.
In a different way, it's like when fans of someone like Newcastle United or West Ham turn up at Anfield and sing about poverty. And it's like, we're all on the same side here. We're all people that should be fighting against the same enemy. Why are we making divisions amongst ourselves? I totally agree with you, because Liverpool fans were totally understandably angry at him at the time. But he was like, what, a 19-year-old lad that just was getting promised by an agent to move to a footy team that at the time was a million times better than Liverpool, where he would have been on more money, where he would have had much greater chances at success, and that's been proven as well. It was absolutely the best move for him. So it does feel like, I totally agree, the booing works, so I'm not going to say stop, but it does feel like everyone could just sort of calm down a bit. But in the relationship between them, or certainly him, like, he doesn't really have to prove anything against us. He doesn't have to prove anything against us.
This is what I'm getting at. It's because it affects him so much Liverpool, and rightfully so, because
we're
that's
going to keep playing on it.
Exactly.
If he just plays his natural game, if he didn't try and start a fight on a pitch, we'll probably just forget about it. We'll probably just be concentrating on us, maybe not defending against them well, and getting riled up by our own defenders or something like that. If you're playing well,
it becomes the Torres pantomime booze. You know what I mean? It becomes that. Ultimately, Torres was part of a Chelsea team that stopped Liverpool winning the Premier League in a very direct way in 2013-14.
He sets the goal up, yeah.
Exactly. He also wins the Champions League with Chelsea, and the vitriol he faced to Stamford Bridge from that away end on his first game for Chelsea. By the time he leaves and he's coming on as a substitute, obviously it helps that he's a shell, and it helps that he's not doing well for Chelsea, but it's completely different to what Sterling is experiencing now. But as you say, it's not for us. Number one, it's not for us to tell Liverpool fans not to do it anyway. But why would anybody stop doing that when it clearly impacts somebody's game so much? So the onus is almost, it is on Raheem Sterling now to basically say, next time I'm not going to get wound up, and I'll try and actually get a shot on target. I'll try and sting the palms of Alisson, because the more this gets to me, the more I'm going to get it, and it's a great cycle for Liverpool, because it means that it absolutely nullifies one of the most talented players in the world against them. Imagine if they could have done that against, down the years, Wayne Rooney and Harry Kane and Cristiano Ronaldo. So it's a weapon in the armoury for Liverpool. It's just that in general it's a bizarre situation. But one that you could almost have seen coming. Just one that you never really would have imagined would actually play out.
No, if you'd have said that on Friday, you'd have totally eschewed it as a prospect. But when you see the reaction of not just him, but Manchester City as a whole throughout the 90 minutes and afterwards, it begins to make that a little bit more sense. And
people related to Manchester City. It's not just, it stems from everywhere. You've been reading things about how, Man City, even going back as far as it might have been 2015 or 2016, accusing Liverpool of breaking the buzzer in the away dressing room, so they didn't come out onto the pitch on time. Little things like that. There's clearly an issue here from the Manchester City side towards Liverpool. You saw it in reaction with some writers at the end of the game as well. It was a bizarre reaction all around. But it's good. It feels like, obviously we're a bit more involved, but it feels like the Man United-Arsenal rivalry of the late 90s, early 2000s.
It was very petty. It was very personal at times, wasn't it? The stuff with the pizza and that.
I was about to say, who's throwing the pizza at Kevin De Bruyne in the next game? I don't know.
Loads of slices of pepperoni slipping off Guardiola's bald barnet. That's all that we've got time for now. Anyway, there's more writing about that on the site. Christian has written a piece this morning. He's also written a piece about the sort of Aubameyang Arsenal meltdown, because it feels like so much of the Premier League is in turmoil while we're just winning games of footy and having a lovely time. There's also a couple of pieces on the Guardiola incidents, I guess you would call them in a nice way. So do make sure to check liverpool.com. There's loads of brilliant writing on there. And we think you should be reading it because it's really good. For now, though, make sure to subscribe to Blood Red. Also, press the notification bell so you don't miss any of the future videos. And have yourself a lovely day. All the best.